So the auctions, as a segue, there's really two types. The first is the base residual auction, and the second one then are these incremental auctions. The eligibility for each is 100 kilowatts, so that opens up the window to many, many customers and what they're enrolling, how they're curtailing. It really provides for a wide variety of options. The base residual auction is generally held every May, 3 years prior to the delivery period. Now, there's been an exception the last few years, and I'll talk about that in another slide, but generally every May, 3 years prior to delivery. And like I mentioned on the prior slide, the generation can be new or existing. It could be a load demand, an interruption, curtailment, could be an energy efficiency upgrade or a series of upgrades that can be enrolled. And of course, then aggregated resources. And we'll talk about that near the end from a curtailment service provider's perspective. What does that mean and how does that affect you? The incremental auctions then, once the base residual auction is done, as you get closer to the delivery period, 3 years, remember 3 years in advance, 3 incremental auctions are held 20, 10, and 3 months prior to the start of that delivery period. And this then allows PJM to really refine what's needed, what's available. Things have changed over the course of those 3 years. Maybe they need more, maybe they need less. And again, considering the zonal variations, perhaps some zones are higher, some zones are lower, what balancing needs to be done. That's really what the incremental auctions are meant to address. So it provides for increases and decreases in commitments to address the reliability of the grid. Okay, an auction schedule. So everybody's looking at the table at the bottom, and that's fine. The important thing to remember here is due to some regulatory issues from a few years ago, the last auction, the last base residual auction was held in 2018, and that's for the current 21-22 delivery year. However, FERC recently allowed the base residual auction to resume in PJM, but playing catch up for the next several years. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting. In this calendar year, 2021, we'll actually have 2 auctions, one in May and one in December. So the one coming up in May, in a few months' time, will be for a delivery period of 22 and 23. Then 6 months, 6.5 months or so later in December, there'll be another auction, and that will be for the 23-24 delivery year. And then we'll be following the schedule from there. June of 22, January of 23, July of 23, we'll be caught up and back to the 3-year forward market that we talked about before. Generally speaking, enrollments for that particular auction, so for May and 21, enrollments are due April prior to the delivery period. So a curtailment service provider, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, will work over the next several months to procure contracts, define your curtailment plans, and verify eligibility and ensure proper enrollment prior to the delivery period.